Listen, you've been lied to. Every quote you've reposted about boundaries? Cute. Every article telling you to just cut them off? Weak sauce. You think you're healing because you blocked them? No, you're still bleeding inside. Because the truth no one tells you is this: toxic people don't need permission. They don't need access to your phone. They live rent-free in your head, and they'll stay there until you change. Not them. You think you need distance. You think you need space. But what you really need is a revolution inside yourself. Toxic people, they're like smoke. The more you chase them out, the more they slip through cracks you didn't even know existed. They're at your job. They're at your dinner table. They're sometimes even in the mirror, echoing voices that trained you to believe you're too much or never enough. And here's the kicker: they're not even powerful. They just know where your wounds are. They know what makes you flinch. They know how to get under your skin, because at some point, you taught them. You reacted. You exploded. You begged. You explained. You reasoned. And every time you did, they took notes. They wrote the manual on how to control you, and you handed them the pen. But today, right now, we're taking the damn pen back. Because here's what no one teaches you. You don't defeat a toxic person by blocking them. You don't win by ghosting them. You win the moment they can't touch your emotions. The second their chaos feels like static instead of a storm. When you stop being bait. When your silence is louder than their drama. This isn't about boundaries. This isn't about being the bigger person. This is about being untouchable. This is about becoming a version of yourself they can't reach. No matter how loud they scream. No matter how dirty they play. No matter how much they try to drag you back into the mud. Because once you understand this, you don't just survive toxic people, you transcend them. And baby, when that happens, they panic. Because without your reaction, without your energy, without your pain to feed on, they are nothing. And yet, for so long, they've felt like everything. Every moment they disrespected you. Every lie they told with a straight face. Every game they played with your emotions. You carried it. You carried it like it was your fault, like you deserved to be tested, manipulated, discarded. And let's be honest, you've probably gotten really good at pretending it doesn't hurt. You smile in public, you work hard, you keep it together. But deep down, there's a part of you still replaying every moment, still analyzing what you should have said, still questioning if maybe, just maybe, you were the problem. You weren't. And this video, this moment right here, is where we finally unhook their claws from your mind and hand you back your peace. Because this isn't just another motivational speech telling you to love yourself. This isn't a soft reminder to let go and breathe deeply while your boundaries are violated like broken levees in a storm. No, this is war. This is a declaration of emotional independence. This is about rebuilding the inner architecture of your mind so powerfully that toxic people can't even find a door to enter. You've tried walking away. You've tried being the bigger person. You've tried silence, kindness, logic, and even love. And yet, somehow, they still find a way back in. Why? Because the real battle isn't outside. It's inside. Inside your nervous system. Inside your belief system. Inside the parts of you that were trained to doubt yourself before you ever doubted them. That's what we're diving into today. Not just the symptoms, but the system. Not just the wounds, but the wiring. Because understanding toxic people isn't enough. You need to understand why you kept giving them access. You need to understand why your energy became their playground. And most importantly, you need to learn how to become someone they cannot touch, no matter how close they get. Here's the roadmap. You and we're going deep. For the next hour, we'll walk through the 7 brutal truths that every healed person had to face before they became untouchable. Each truth is going to stretch you. It's going to hit nerves you've been protecting. But that's the point. We don't grow by hiding. We grow by facing the fire and refusing to burn. First, we'll uncover the raw power of emotional detachment. Not the kind where you pretend not to care, but the kind where their chaos no longer penetrates your peace. Then we'll step into the hidden currency of toxic people, your reaction, and how your silence can starve their entire system of control. From there, we'll break down the manipulation playbook, page by page, so you stop falling for the same tricks wearing different faces. We'll go even deeper into the cycle of energy theft, how they don't just want your time, they want your mind, your self-doubt, your overthinking. We'll explore the mindset shift that flips the script, when you stop waiting for them to change and realize that you've had the power all along. And then comes the transformation, the revenge they'll never recover from. Not revenge in the petty sense, but the kind where your healing becomes your glow-up. The kind where your peace becomes so loud, it drowns out every lie they told about you. We're going to show you how to turn their hate into heat, the kind that forges something stronger than they ever imagined. Finally, we close with the final truth, irrelevance. The ultimate burial of toxic influence isn't confrontation, it's silence. Not the silence of defeat, but the silence of elevation. When you rise so high, they can't even reach you anymore. No arguments. No closure. Just success, serenity, and sovereignty. This isn't just about dealing with one toxic person. This is about becoming the kind of person that repels dysfunction by existing. This is about reprogramming your nervous system to no longer respond to familiar pain. This is about changing the frequency of your entire life so that toxicity no longer feels like home. Because let's be honest, many of us learned to call chaos love. We confused control with care. We mistook trauma bonding for loyalty. And now, it's time to unlearn all of it. So don't just watch this video, absorb it, let it hit you, let it change you. Let every word carve new walls around your worth, because the version of you that tolerated them, that version dies today, and in its place, we resurrect someone powerful, someone unbothered, someone untouchable. You're not broken, you were just surrounded by people who benefited from your confusion. But you're not confused anymore. You're awake, and once you're awake, you can't go back to sleepwalking through manipulation. So take a deep breath. This is your moment. And by the end of this video, you won't just understand how to deal with toxic people, you'll be immune to them. They don't need to be stronger than you. They just need you to react. That's it. That's their secret weapon. It's not their manipulation, not their fake apologies, not even their twisted games. It's your reaction. Your emotion is their oxygen. Your confusion is their caffeine. Your anger is the matchstick. They were hoping you'd light. Every time you raise your voice, every time you plead your case, every time you send a long text to finally explain everything, they win. Not because you're wrong, but because you're still trying. Because your attention, even in rage, still feeds their ego. They don't want resolution. They want your energy. That's why they push your buttons. Not randomly but surgically. They know the exact tone that makes your blood boil. They know what memory to weaponize. They remember the wound you trusted them with. And now they twist it like a knife. They bait you, calmly, casually, because they know that the second you crack, they get the upper hand. And let's be honest, sometimes you take the bait. Not because you're weak, but because you're human. You want to be understood. You want the chaos to stop. You want to be heard, but with toxic people, that desire becomes a trap. Because when you react, you give them a stage. You give them a role to play. The victim, the hero, the misunderstood soul. And suddenly you're on defense, explaining, justifying, repeating yourself in circles, while they sit back and pretend like they don't know what you're talking about. But oh, they know. They've known. They planned it. They rehearsed it. This is what they do. They don't thrive in truth. They thrive in drama. They thrive when you forget who you are just long enough to make them the center of your world again. You've probably heard people say, "Don't let them get to you." Sounds simple, right? But it's not. Not when you've spent your life being taught that love means sacrifice. That peace means people pleasing. That strength means staying quiet while someone disrespects you with a smile. No, it's not easy, but it's necessary. Because every time you react to their chaos, you lose a little more of your peace. You hand it over, piece by piece, thinking that maybe this time they'll stop, maybe this time they'll change. But they won't, because the truth is, your reaction is their addiction. And until you stop giving it to them, the cycle never ends. Imagine this, they say something cruel, and you do nothing. You don't flinch, you don't cry, you don't even blink. You just observe. That silence, that pause, that stillness, that's your power returning. That's your soul closing the door, and they'll notice. Oh, they'll notice. Because when they lose your reaction, they lose their grip. Suddenly, they're scrambling. They start poking harder, insulting deeper, playing dirtier. But you've seen the game now, haven't you? You've seen the blueprint. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. That's why this chapter is the beginning of your comeback. The moment you decide you will no longer be an emotional vending machine for people who only show up to take. Your anger, not available. Your heartbreak, off limits. Your confusion, closed for renovation. Because you are not a sponge for toxicity. You are not a dumpster for someone else's dysfunction. You are not a mirror for their insecurities. You are not their project, their punching bag, you're their audience. And here's the twist. When you stop reacting, they'll say you've changed. They'll say you're cold, arrogant, unfair, distant. And that's okay. Let them narrate a version of you they can live with. Because the real version of you, the calm, healed, whole version, doesn't need their validation anymore. The old you would have argued. The old you would have begged to be understood. But not anymore. Now, you don't explain peace to people who profit from your pain. You've reclaimed the steering wheel. You're not swerving into their chaos. You're not swaying with every insult. You're not running around putting out fires they started. You are still. You are steady. You are becoming untouchable. And the more you hold that stillness, the more their chaos starts to look like desperation. That's the moment you shift from survival to sovereignty. That's the moment they realize they never had power. They just had access. And baby, that access, it's revoked. They'll call it silence. But it's actually strategy. They'll say you've gone cold, but really you've gone calm. And calm is terrifying to someone who only understands chaos. Toxic people can handle drama. They can handle yelling. They can even handle being blocked. What they can't handle is your peace. Your unbothered energy is a mirror that reflects everything they're not, and it burns. Because the moment you stop reacting, the moment your voice lowers instead of rises, the moment you smile when they expected you to snap, that's when they realize they've lost control. And let me tell you something. Nobody ever taught us growing up. The calmest person in the room is the most dangerous one. Not because they're holding it in, not because they're weak, but because they've learned how to master their state. They've stopped giving away their emotional thermostat to people who don't even know how to dress themselves for the weather. When you're calm in the face of attack, you're no longer fighting on their battlefield. You've changed the game. You're playing chess while they're still throwing tantrums in the sandbox. But let's get real. Calm doesn't mean you're unaffected. It means you're self-governing. It means you're aware of your storm, but you choose not to unleash it for people who thrive on watching you break. Because when you scream back at a toxic person, all they hear is confirmation that they still own space inside you. But when you remain composed, when your voice stays steady, when your eyes don't flinch and your energy doesn't shift, they feel it in their bones. That stillness is deafening. It says, I've outgrown you. It says you're not worth my imbalance. You want to know the real flex, walking away without saying a word, not in a petty way, not in a power trip way, in a self-respecting way. Calm is power. Calm is authority. Calm is control. And the people who try to provoke you will feel that power when you don't flinch. That's the moment they start to spiral. That's when they try harder, not because they're strong, but because they're losing grip. They're used to pulling strings and watching you dance. But now, the strings are gone. You're not a puppet anymore. And let me be clear, this isn't about being passive. This isn't about swallowing your truth or pretending things don't bother you. This is about choosing what you respond to, about being so in tune with yourself that someone else's chaos doesn't even shake your foundation. When you're calm, you're untouchable. Not because you're distant, but because you're grounded. You're not ignoring reality. You're elevating above it. You're not avoiding conflict. You're refusing to be baited into losing your peace. You see, toxic people love chaos because chaos creates fog. And in fog, you can't see clearly. You can't think clearly. You start questioning yourself. You start reacting. That's their game. But calm cuts through fog like sunlight. It exposes the game. It brings truth to the surface. It makes them uncomfortable. Not because you're being cruel, but because they're being exposed. Your peace is their panic. Your calm is their crisis. Because without your reaction, they're forced to sit with their own reflection, and they hate what they see. And here's what happens next. They escalate, they insult, they twist, they dig deeper, looking for the old version of you, the one who would have cried, shouted, defended. But that version doesn't live here anymore. And every time you stay calm, you train them. You rewire the relationship dynamic. You say without words, I don't play this game anymore. And the longer you hold that energy, the sooner they realize, not only have you changed, but you're not coming back. This is where your healing becomes your armor, where your self-control becomes your sword. This is where you reclaim the narrative, not with words, but with presence. Your calm becomes a fortress, and only those worthy of peace will ever be invited inside. Because now, you don't chase respect, you command it, not through force, but through alignment. Through knowing that your energy is sacred, that your nervous system isn't up for auction, that your peace doesn't have a price tag. So the next time they try to provoke you, remember this: they're not trying to win an argument, they're trying to pull you back into the identity you've outgrown. Don't take the bait, stay grounded, stay still, let their storm pass while you remain unmoved. Because the strongest people in the world aren't the ones who scream the loudest, they're the ones who stay silent when everything around them begs them to break. And that's what you are now: unshakable, calm, steady. Someone who doesn't flinch in the face of dysfunction because they've built a home inside themselves that chaos can't enter. And that's power they'll never understand, but they'll feel it every time you say nothing at all. They told you to just ignore them, block them, cut them off, delete the number, walk away. And maybe you did. Maybe you stopped answering the calls, left them on read, erased the chats. But here's the bitter truth most don't want to admit: ignoring is surface level. You can ghost someone, but still be haunted. You can delete their contact and still rehearse conversations with them in your mind. You can say, I'm done, and still lie awake, replaying every insult they ever threw like it was your name. Because ignoring is not the same as detaching. Ignoring is physical. Detachment is spiritual, emotional, mental, deep in the bones. It's not just about removing them from your life. It's about removing their echo from your soul. It's about making their voice irrelevant even when it's screaming inside your memory. You don't just want them out of your inbox. You want them out of your identity. See, toxic people don't always need access to control you. Sometimes they don't even need to be in your life anymore. They just need a memory, a wound, a regret you haven't healed. That's all it takes to keep you stuck. And you think you've let go, but deep down you're still hoping they'll realize that they'll change. That maybe one day they'll see what they lost. That's not healing. That's emotional limbo. And that's exactly where they want you. Because when you ignore them but still think about them, you're still dancing to their rhythm. You're still playing their game. You're still reacting, just silently, now. But detachment is when you stop needing closure, when you stop needing an apology, when you stop needing them to understand what they did. It's when your peace becomes more important than being right. It's when your healing no longer depends on their awareness. It's when your growth walks away and doesn't even look back, not out of spite, but out of sovereignty. Detachment is when their name stops stinging, when you hear it and your heart doesn't jump, when someone brings them up and your soul doesn't tense like it used to. Detachment is when you no longer explain to anyone what happened, not because you've forgotten, but because it no longer defines you. Because your story evolved past the chapter they were in. You want to win? Don't just ignore them, outgrow them. Level up so far that their opinion couldn't reach you with a megaphone. Build a life that makes them irrelevant. One where your energy isn't dictated by flashbacks or fantasies, but by truth. The truth that they had access to a version of you that no longer exists. And that version, she's gone. He's evolved. They've moved on. Because here's the trick: toxic people count on you ignoring them. That's just another game, another way for them to still be the center of your decisions. But when you detach, when you truly no longer care, when you release the need for them to get it, that's when the game ends. That's when you become untouchable. Not because you ran, but because you rose. It's not about pretending they didn't hurt you. It's about no longer needing them to fix it. It's about realizing that your healing doesn't require their participation, that your worth isn't something they were ever qualified to evaluate. Detachment You were a lesson, not a loss. It says, I honor the pain, but I'm done rehearsing it. And most importantly, detachment says, you don't live here anymore. And that's the goal. Not to erase the past, but to stop bleeding from it. To stop using the present as a bandage for wounds they left open. To stop using anger as a way to keep the connection alive. You see, even hate is a form of attachment. Even resentment is a thread. True detachment is when you don't even need to hate them. You just don't need them, period. That's when you've really won. When your nervous system no longer flinches at the thought of them. When you stop checking if they've watched your story. When you no longer write paragraphs in your head you'll never sense. When your silence isn't heavy, it's holy. Because now you've outgrown their gravity. You're not stuck in orbit anymore. So yes, block them, mute them, cut the ties, but don't stop there. Do the deeper work. Heal the scar that still whispers their name when you doubt yourself. Clean the corners of your mind, where their voice still echoes. Sweep out the need to be seen, validated, avenged. You don't need them to get it anymore. Because you get it. And that's more than enough. Manipulation doesn't always look like lies. Sometimes it looks like a smile, a gentle voice, a soft, I'm just worried about you. It's not always shouting or name-calling. In fact, the most dangerous manipulators are the quiet ones. The ones who whisper their control into your soul like it's love. They don't storm into your life. They slip in, subtle, steady, intentional. And by the time you realize you're tangled in their web, you've already started to question your own sanity. This is how it begins. They test your boundaries. Small things at first. A joke that cuts a little too deep. A comment wrapped in sarcasm. A moment where you say no and they push back. Just slightly. Just enough to see how far they can go. And when you flinch, when you hesitate, when you laugh it off even though it stings, they smile, because they've found an opening. Now the cycle begins. Manipulation is a loop, and once you're in it, it feels like a maze with no exit. It starts with idealization. They praise you, love bomb you, make you feel seen in ways that feel almost divine. You think you've found someone who finally understands you, someone who gets your soul, and then subtly, cruelly, comes the shift. The devaluation, the tiny digs, the slow withdrawal of affection, the rewriting of stories to make them the victim and you the villain. And before you can catch your breath, you're explaining yourself for things you didn't even do. You ever notice how toxic people rewrite reality in real time? You say, that hurt me, and they say, you're too sensitive. You ask for clarity, and they accuse you of being controlling. You express a need, and suddenly you're too much. They weaponize empathy. They twist your intentions. They turn your love into leverage, and slowly you begin to shrink. You question yourself. You doubt your instincts. You start thinking, maybe it is my fault. That's the cycle. It's designed to keep you dizzy, because as long as you're questioning yourself, you're not questioning them, and they like it that way. Confusion is control. The less certain you are, the more power they have. You stop setting boundaries because you're scared of being called selfish. You stop speaking your truth because you're tired of arguing. You walk on eggshells while they dance on your dignity, and they convince you it's love. They'll apologize just enough to keep you close, but never enough to change. They'll do just enough to seem remorseful, but never enough to take accountability. And when you finally start to pull away, they'll love bomb you again. Send a sweet text. Mention a memory. Act like nothing ever happened, because the goal isn't to make it right, it's to reset the loop. And you start over again, hoping this time will be different. Spoiler, it won't. Here's what you need to understand. This isn't your fault. Manipulation works best on kind people, on empathetic souls, on those who see the best in others. They don't choose you because you're weak. They choose you because you're strong in all the ways they're not. And they want to use your strength for their gain. They're not confused. They're calculated. They know exactly what they're doing. That time they blamed you for their outburst? Planned. That moment they gaslit you into questioning what you saw with your own eyes? Practiced. You think they don't know how to behave? No. They just don't want to. That's why the only way to break the manipulation cycle is not by fixing them, but by waking up you. By recognizing the pattern. naming it, and walking away even when part of you still cares. That's the hardest part, isn't it? You still love them. You still believe in the version of them they showed you in the beginning. But that version was a costume, and the mask has slipped. You're not leaving a good person who made a few mistakes. You're leaving a system that was designed to keep you small, and once you see the cycle, you can't unsee it. You stop blaming yourself. You stop playing therapist. You stop trying to be enough for someone who's already decided to misunderstand you. And you start choosing peace over potential, truth over fantasy, clarity over chaos. That's where your power returns, not when they change, but when you do. Because here's the truth, manipulators don't need new chances. They need new victims. And when you remove yourself from the narrative, they don't crumble, they find someone else. Let them. Your job is not to be their savior. Your job is to be your own protector, to guard your peace like it's sacred, because it is. So the next time they twist your words, the next time they play the victim, the next time they make you feel crazy for having basic needs, remember this, it's a game. And the only way to win is to stop playing. They don't just want your time. They want your energy, your peace, your attention, your confusion. And the most sinister part, they want it whether they're in your life or not. Some toxic people don't need to stand in the room with you to drain you. They just need to linger in your thoughts. All it takes is one mental replay, one internal debate, one imaginary argument in the shower where you finally say everything they never let you finish. That's how they stay alive, as ghosts in your emotional ecosystem. And they'll keep feeding until you starve them. Because the real poison isn't always in their words. It's in your reaction to them long after they've gone quiet. They could be across town or off your social media completely, and still, you're spiraling, still explaining yourself in your head, still checking their last post, still hoping maybe this time they'll see the truth. But you know what the truth is? You've given them enough, too much, even. And now it's time to pull the plug. Cutting the energy supply doesn't mean being cruel, it means being clear. Clear that your mind is no longer a playground for their dysfunction. Clear that your soul is not up for emotional rent. Clear that you will not waste one more breath trying to convince someone to treat you like a human being. That's not growth, that's desperation. And you're done with that. You're done handing out explanations to people who've made a career out of misunderstanding you, because toxic people are masterful at making you feel guilty for protecting your peace. They'll act like you're the villain for going quiet, for setting boundaries, for not responding to the 100th message. But let me ask you something. When was the last time they respected your energy? When was the last time they gave instead of took? When was the last time you walked away from an interaction with them feeling better than before? Exactly. So let's stop pretending this is mutual. Let's stop pretending this is love. What they offer is not connection, it's consumption. And the only way to end it is to stop feeding the fire. No texts, no reads, no second chances, no explanations. Not because you're bitter, but because they're not entitled to your power anymore. You've got better things to do with your breath than exhale it for people who only show up to dim your light. And here's where it gets deeper. It's not just what you stop doing on the outside. It's what you stop doing internally. You stop rehearsing pain. You stop fantasizing about closure. You stop crafting the perfect clapback you'll never send. You stop letting their dysfunction become the soundtrack of your peace. Because every time you give them space in your mind, you shrink your capacity for joy, focus, and real connection. Cutting the energy supply means reclaiming your headspace. It means choosing not to chase understanding from people who don't even understand themselves. It means realizing that someone's inability to see your worth doesn't mean you have none. It just means you've been standing in front of someone blind and calling it love. And yes, they will try to pull you back in. They'll bait you with kindness, guilt, nostalgia, apologies laced with manipulation, silence followed by sudden concern. But this time, you'll see it. You'll feel the hook in their words. You'll recognize the pattern not as love lost, but power lost, their power. Because they can't feed on someone who no longer offers access. It's like pulling a plug from the wall. The noise stops, the flickering ends, and suddenly there's quiet. And in that quiet, you heal. You realize how long you've been powering their chaos at the expense of your own peace. And it ends now, not with a grand speech, not with a dramatic exit. It ends the moment you stop feeding them the one thing they've always needed most, your reaction. Let them spiral, let them wonder, let them think whatever they want. Their opinion was never the currency you needed. Their presence was never the fuel that lit your fire. And the moment you decide they no longer get to dictate how you feel, how you think, or how you show up in the world, that's the moment the game is over. You are not their source anymore. You are not their mirror, their excuse, their fallback, their addiction. You've unplugged, and you're finally free. Here's what toxic people will never tell you. You were the prize. You were the fire. You were the source of light they tried to dim, not because you weren't enough, but because you were too much for their shadow to handle. They never had the power. Not once. What they had was your permission, your participation, your response, your heart, wide open, raw, and honest, laid out like a map they pretended not to read, while following it step by step to manipulate your every move. But now, the illusion is broken. The spell has cracked. Because here's the secret they kept hidden in their control. They needed you more than you ever needed them. Without your energy, they're dust. Without your attention, they're background noise. Without your belief in their potential, they're just a collection of empty promises and sharp edges. You were the one who brought the color. You were the one who stayed, who loved, who forgave, who tried. They fed on your empathy, your desire to see the best in people, your belief that anyone could change if given enough love, enough time, enough patience. They saw that in you and thought, perfect, not because they wanted to be better, but because they wanted to use your strength to mask their emptiness. And it worked. For a while. Until you started to wake up. Until your spirit whispered, this isn't love. Until your peace started costing more than their approval. And when that happened, when your eyes opened, they panicked. Not because you changed, but because they never expected you to. They built their throne on your self-doubt. And now the foundation is shaking. That's why they fight harder the moment you go still. That's why they act like you're the villain the second you stop saving them. Because your absence reveals a truth they can't cope with. You were the source. You were the one holding it all together. You were the glue, the ground, the giver. And now you've stopped. There's something wild and holy about realizing your power. At first, it feels like guilt. How dare I stop helping? How dare I protect my peace? But then, it clicks. You weren't abandoning anyone. You were rescuing yourself. You weren't giving up. You were getting up. Off your knees, out of the fog, and into the version of you that no longer begs for scraps of love from people who only come to feed when they're hungry for attention. You start remembering who you were before they got inside your head, before they made you question your instincts, before they mirrored your greatness only to resent you for it. And that remembering, that's the real rebirth. That's the glow up. Not the revenge body, not the dramatic goodbye, but the quiet return to your own soul. The realization that their silence no longer breaks you, that their approval no longer moves you, that their chaos no longer shakes your ground. You were never weak. You were just lied to. They told you that your sensitivity was a flaw, that your needs were too much, that your voice was too loud. But the truth? Your sensitivity was wisdom. Your needs were sacred. Your voice was truth. They just couldn't handle it, because it reminded them of everything they weren't. And now? You don't need to dim anymore. You don't need to shrink, apologize, or explain. You don't need to fit yourself into boxes built by people who couldn't even hold your spirit with both hands. You were always the power source. You just forgot. They convinced you to unplug from yourself so they could feed. But that time is over. The cord is cut. The power is back where it belongs. In you, in your hands, in your heart, in your boundaries, in your peace. And the best part, now you know what it feels like to be drained, so you'll never allow it again. Because here's the final truth. You don't need closure. You don't need revenge. You don't even need them to understand. What you need is to never forget again. Never forget how it felt to question yourself daily. Never forget the weight of walking on eggshells. Never forget the ache of over-explaining your worth. And never forget the moment you realized that you, not them, were the one who held the power all along. That's your truth now. That's your edge. That's your calm, and anyone who approaches you from this point forward will feel it, not in your words, not in your tone, but in your energy, solid, grounded, sovereign, because you've remembered, and once you remember, you don't go back. They thought they broke you, and for a while, maybe they did. Maybe you cried into your pillow more nights than you'll admit. Maybe you stopped trusting yourself, stopped laughing, stopped dreaming. They watched the light flicker in your eyes, and they smiled. Not because they won, but because they thought you were done fighting. They thought the damage they caused would stay permanent, that you'd carry the weight of their chaos forever, that you'd stay locked in their story, haunted by their opinion, silenced by their memory. But what they didn't realize, what they never expected, is that your silence wasn't surrender. It was evolution. You weren't breaking. You were shedding, and now you've risen. Quietly, gracefully, powerfully. And the best revenge you could ever serve isn't vengeance. It's visibility. It's happiness. It's peace, so loud, it echoes into every room they enter without you. It's the way your name shows up in conversations they'll never be invited to. It's the way your energy stays untouchable even when your presence is gone. Revenge isn't blocking them. Revenge is becoming someone they'll never have access to again. Someone who doesn't flinch when their name is mentioned. Someone who doesn't stalk their page, doesn't reread the messages, doesn't keep the door cracked open in case they suddenly decide to be who you always hoped they could be. That version of you, the waiting, hoping, explaining version, is gone, dead and buried under the strength you've now become. You're not avoiding them. You're outgrowing them. You're not walking away. You're walking up, higher, further, deeper into the version of yourself that no longer tolerates being chosen last, no longer waits to be respected, no longer accepts crumbs in the name of love, the version of you who used to settle. That was your cocoon. This version is your flight, and they'll feel it. Oh, they'll feel it. They'll hear your name and bite their tongue. They'll see your success and feel a burn in their gut, not because you've rubbed it in, but because you didn't have to. Your joy will scream louder than any petty post ever could. Your peace will preach sermons they can't escape, because nothing torments a toxic person more than knowing they didn't break you. And that's what real revenge is. It's not shouting back. It's not throwing dirt. It's not proving a point. It's never having to look back at all. It's waking up without dread. It's choosing partners who don't trigger your trauma. It's walking into rooms where your voice is welcomed instead of mocked. It's watching your reflection change, not into someone harder, but into someone wiser, stronger, braver, untouchable. You don't need to prove they were wrong about you. You just need to prove to yourself that you're done proving anything to anyone. That's the final level. When you stop needing to be understood, when you stop needing validation, when you stop asking people who hurt you to be the ones to heal you, you become the healer of your own heart, of your own story, of your own legacy. They wanted you emotional, reactive, spiraling. They wanted to be the wound you never recovered from. But now, they're just a scar, a reminder of who you'll never allow into your soul again. You don't hate them, because hate is still energy. Hate is still attention. Hate still means you care. And the truth is, you don't. You feel nothing, and nothing. That's powerful. That's peace. That's revenge they'll never recover from. Because at the end of the day, the most dangerous thing a toxic person can ever face is someone who is finally free, someone who no longer waits for closure, who no longer wants justice, who simply lives better. And you, my friend, you're living better. You're not just healing, you've healed. You're not just moving on, you've moved up. So let them talk, let them twist the story, let them drown in the version of you they created in their heads, because you're not coming back to explain anything. You've said all there is to say, in silence, in joy, in growth, in freedom, and that silence, that glow, that untouchable energy they'll never taste again, that is revenge. You thought healing would come with fireworks. That one day the pain would vanish, the memories would fade, and you'd feel like yourself again, whole, untouched, victorious. But the truth is, healing is quieter than that. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't walk in with a spotlight. It arrives in moments that feel almost forgettable, like when you no longer think to check if they viewed your story, or when their name no longer stabs. It just floats by, unremarkable. Healing is subtle. It's in the breath you don't realize you're taking without tension. It's in the mirror, when you meet your own eyes and for the first time in forever, you don't look away. This is the moment you reclaim yourself. Not the broken version, not the betrayed version, but the version you buried. The you before the chaos. Before you started molding yourself into what they needed. Before you started shrinking your laughter, dulling your light, hiding your depth. This moment right here. This is resurrection. You didn't lose yourself. You were just buried beneath layers of survival. And now, one truth at a time, you're digging your way back. And maybe you still feel tired. That's okay. Maybe you're still angry. That's okay too. Healing isn't linear. Some days you'll feel free. Other days the memory sneaks in through the back door and sits with you like an old ghost. But even then, even when it hurts, you're still healing. Because now you see it. You recognize the pattern. You understand the game. And the second you can name it, it loses its grip. There's power in naming what broke you. There's power in saying, that was manipulation. That was emotional abuse. That wasn't my fault. You weren't too sensitive. You weren't asking for too much. You weren't impossible to love. You were just in the wrong room, handing your heart to people who only knew how to cut. And that shame you've been carrying. It was never yours. It was theirs. Projected, deflected, and dumped into you like you were a landfill for their pain. But you're not a landfill. You're a garden. And the soil may be scorched, but it's still rich. And now, you're planting truth where lies used to grow. This is where your real life begins. Not the one where you're constantly managing other people's moods. Not the one where you're performing strength while quietly breaking. No, this is the life where you're allowed to rest, where peace isn't a pause between chaos, but the default, where you don't have to prove your worth by bleeding for anyone. Where your presence is not a currency someone else gets to spend. You are not for sale. You are not available for disrespect. You are not accessible to people who refuse to do the work to meet you where you are. They don't get to call you bitter for protecting yourself. They don't get to frame you as cold just because you stopped lighting yourself on fire to keep them warm. You are not cold. You are clear. You are not bitter. You are done. And there's freedom in that kind of finality, because now, you don't just know your worth. You feel it, you breathe it, you embody it. Every no you say without guilt, every door you close without explanation, every silence you hold with grace. That's your power. Let this be the moment everything changes. Not because someone finally treated you right, not because you got an apology, but because you decided you're done bleeding for people who don't even bother to bring you a bandage. Because you're not waiting anymore. Not for closure, not for understanding, not for them to realize who you were. You know who you are now, and that is enough. You made it through the gaslighting, the manipulation, the self-doubt. You crawled through the shame, through the rage, through the grief, and you're still standing. You are living proof that trauma does not have the final word, that healing is real, that peace is possible, that even the most broken hearts can bloom again. This is not just survival. This is resurrection. You've reclaimed your energy. You've rebuilt your mind. You've redefined what love looks like. And now, you're untouchable. Not because you're numb, but because you are whole. You've made it, not just to the end of a video, but to the beginning of something you thought might never be possible again. Yourself. You didn't just watch this. You walked through it. You felt the sting, the weight, the echoes of your past pressing against your chest. And still, you stayed, you listened, you remembered, you breathed. That alone is power, because most people don't stay this long. Most people stop when it hurts. But not you. You let this video dig deep, pull truth from the shadows, light the match of your awakening, and now, you can't go back. You've tasted freedom. You've seen behind the mask. You've remembered what it feels like to belong to yourself. So now the next step isn't just about clicking another video. It's about clicking into your life, choosing your peace daily, guarding your energy like it's sacred, speaking your truth even when your voice shakes, not chasing love, but becoming love, not waiting for validation, but walking like you already have it, because you do. You were never lacking. You were just lied to. And if this video resonated, truly resonated, don't let it be background noise, make it a turning point. Pause, replay it if you need to. Share it with someone you know is still stuck in the loop. Let this be more than content. Let it be a catalyst, because healing loves company. So if you're ready for more truth, more fire, more clarity, more videos that speak not just to your mind but to your soul, then stay with us. Hit that subscribe button. Not because I asked, but because you deserve this kind of truth on a regular basis. Turn on the bell so you don't miss the next time your soul needs to hear what the world is too afraid to say. And while you're here, drop a comment. Tell me, what was the moment that cracked you open? What did you finally see about yourself? What part of this message hit like a mirror? Because we read them. We build this channel with hearts, not hacks, with truth, not trends. And your story, your breakthrough, could be the spark for someone else to find theirs. And if you're hungry for more, there's another video waiting for you, right here. It's not just a suggestion, it's a continuation, the next layer, the next healing, the next healing. Click it, watch it, feel it, not because you have to, but because you're finally ready to. And remember this always. You don't need to prove anything to anyone who benefits from your silence. You don't need to wait for permission to become whole. You don't need revenge. You just need peace. And peace, that's yours now. You've made it, not just to the end of a video, but to the beginning of something you thought might never be possible again. Yourself. You didn't just watch this. You walked through it. You felt the sting, the weight, the echoes of your past pressing against your chest, and still, you stayed. You listened. You remembered. You breathed. That alone is power, because most people don't stay this long. Most people stop when it hurts. But not you. You let this video dig deep, pull truth from the shadows, light the match of your awakening, and now, you can't go back. You've tasted freedom. You've seen behind the mask. You've remembered what it feels like to belong to yourself. So now the next step isn't just about clicking another video. It's about clicking into your life, choosing your peace daily, guarding your energy like it's sacred, speaking your truth even when your voice shakes, not chasing love, but becoming love, not waiting for validation, but walking like you already have it, because you do. You were never lacking. You were just lied to. And if this video resonated, truly resonated, don't let it be background noise, make it a turning point. Pause, replay it if you need to. Share it with someone you know is still stuck in the loop. Let this be more than content. Let it be a catalyst, because healing loves company. So if you're ready for more truth, more fire, more clarity, more videos that speak not just to your mind but to your soul, then stay with us. Hit that subscribe button. Not because I asked, but because you deserve this kind of truth on a regular basis. Turn on the bell so you don't miss the next time your soul needs to hear what the world is too afraid to say. And while you're here, drop a comment. Tell me, what was the moment that cracked you open? What did you finally see about yourself? What part of this message hit like a mirror? Because we read them. We build this channel with hearts, not hacks, with truth, not trends. And your story, your breakthrough, could be the spark for someone else to find theirs. And if you're hungry for more, there's another video waiting for you, right here. It's not just a suggestion, it's a continuation, the next layer, the next healing, the next healing. Click it, watch it, feel it, not because you have to, but because you're finally ready to. And remember this always. You don't need to prove anything to anyone who benefits from your silence. You don't need to wait for permission to become whole. You don't need revenge. You just need peace. And peace, that's yours now.